funny.
We'll call
ratings have
the regular Ways and Means Committee. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you do the roll call, please, Bonnie?
Commissioner Gilman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Limcool?
Here.
Maxbauer? Here. Richardson?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Present. Next item's the approval of the minutes of the April 20th, 2011 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the minutes as mailed.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we come to the first public comment. Would you read the rules, please, Bonnie?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? I see we have some young faces in here tonight. No young people want to talk? All right.
Class assignment. Don't they have to introduce themselves?
Are you here on a school assignment?
It would be good
Everybody
proof
that's
that they're
on
here,
school
though.
assignment, raise your hand.
Leave them alone.
Yeah.
Ah, that's good. We have 6.
At least
Okay, next item is the approval of the agenda.
Move as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And would you read the action on the consent calendar, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file, none. Approve, number 1, appropriation requests.
Does any member of the public want anything removed from the consent calendar? Board? Christine?
B1.
B1.
Anything else?
Well, let's see.
7B1.
We understand.
So there's no consent agenda.
Did we even have?
No.
Always wanted to see everything
7B.
full.
I suppose that's right. You're right. Yes, I'm taking that off.
You just blew up the consent calendar.
Yes, I did.
Next page.
Put it under something.
We'll put it under number 9, unfinished business. Okay, moving right along. First item is Commission on Aging, Equipment for Chore Program, page 8.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Who supported?
Somebody
Thank you.
down there.
It's been moved and supported to approve the Commission on Aging equipment for the chore program. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Larry, we should probably note for the public that's listening or watching
This is for the purchase of one 48-inch commercial mower, one 36-inch commercial mower, and a leaf blower. Total cost $10,139.80.
Thank you.
Two leaf
Yeah,
blowers.
two leaf blowers.
Just really should.
Commissioner Henschel,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Limkul,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Gilman,
Yes.
Fleece.
Abstain? Next item, motion passes. Next item on is the resource recovery amendment to the solid waste plan. Sonny, did you plan on addressing that, page 10?
I can, I've reported to you on multiple occasions, the mandatory 90-day public comment process for the Solid Waste Planning Committee's amendment was ended on May 15th. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., the Solid Waste Planning Committee will meet at the Civic Center to finalize the first phase amendment, which will be before you next week at the Board of Commissioners meeting for approval. After the Board of Commissioners approves that amendment, it will be carried to the 13 townships, 2 villages in the city of Traverse City for approval. It has to be approved by 2/3 of them before it can be submitted to the state of Michigan. Once the amendment is submitted to the state, it will make the proposed facility that American Waste is building on Hughes Drive a use by right and a designated facility within our plan so as that plan can be licensed. It cannot currently be licensed and operated until such time as the county solid waste plan amendment is done. This amendment, like I've told you before, is basically to that end. It is specific to the siting of that facility. Coming shortly behind it, though, while we have the Solid Waste Planning Committee in place, is a cover-to-cover review and update of the county solid waste plan. Our plan was drawn in 1998. There's just a lot of parts in the plan that did not meet the needs of our community or the desires of our community. So we're working very hard to get that done. The Solid Waste Planning Committee will receive tomorrow the drafts of the executive summary, the goals and objectives, and at least the first half of the selected program. The drafts of all that wording have been changed and it will be submitted to them. I keep saying I'm going to get this plan from about 43 pages down to 12, and we're at about 8 or 9 right now, so we're getting
All
pretty
right.
close. Good. And we have the executive summary down to about 2.5 pages.
Good. Great.
So,
Good.
but it's very good. I'm very excited to see the change, and we've had discussion before the Resource Recovery Council about starting to look at Ordinance 17, which is the ordinance that gives the county the ability to regulate solid waste. Problem being, some of them would like to move forward with Ordinance 17 right now. I think we have to finish the plan first so we know what we're regulating to. But we've sent drafts, or Ordinance 17 has been sent to all the Resource Recovery Council members, and they've been requested to identify parts in the current ordinance that we don't do, or we do not wish to continue to do. If you remember, the current solid waste plan requires that the county site a landfill in Whitewater Township and own the county-owned MRF facility and contract countywide for solid waste. And I don't believe we're going to do any of those 3 things.
Nope.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheelock. Does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Wheelock? And I don't think there's any action required tonight, is there?
No,
Just a report.
next week, I do want you to know that next week we're going to be asking for approval of the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the Road Commission Capital Outlay Loan, page 11. Ross?
I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to prepare an agreement to loan the Road Commission approximately $440,000 to purchase 2 heavy-duty snowplow trucks and negotiate an interest rate with the county treasurer and bring it back to the board for review and approval.
Support.
Been moved and supported to have staff prepare the necessary documents and interest. Dean?
Dennis asked me to just, for the new commissioners, back in the fall of 2009, we had loaned the road commission funds for the purchase of 2 heavy-duty tandem axle trucks. The amount of that loan was $337,000 approximately. They're making quarterly payments on that loan, and the interest rate on that loan was 2.15%. We just thought you should know that this is the second time that we would be assisting the road commission. We do have the funds, the excess cash to do this.
Rob?
When we do a loan like this, which fund does it come out of?
It's the cash that would support this loan is the common cash that's spread across all of the county funds, but it would primarily be the county general fund.
And do we currently earn an interest rate on the fund as is?
Yes.
And what is that?
About 0.5%, probably not quite 0.5%, but this is actually, what we're anticipating, Commissioner, is a rate that is better than the road commission could do with a local bank, and a rate that is quite a bit better than we're making on our funds.
It's a win-win, yeah.
It is.
Any other discussion or questions? Everybody understand the motion? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is Human Resources, Command Officers Association of Michigan, Sergeants Bargaining Unit. Jen? And that's on page 13.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. In front of you is the Command Officers Association of Michigan. There's our Sergeants Bargaining Unit in our Sheriff's Department. This includes sergeants within our corrections unit in our jail as well as in the road. And it's detailed in front of you. This is a agreement until 4-year agreement until 2014.
Ross?
Well, my first comment is that I owe Herb Lemko an apology from about 2 hours ago when I assured him that the biggest contract we were looking at right now was 1.75%, and here's one for 3% for this year, so.
Yep.
This is just for this specific unit.
I understand that.
Okay.
And that's why I probably, made the comment I did, but obviously my facts weren't very good.
We're all there.
We've all been there.
And I will point out that next year it drops down to 1.75%, so anyway.
Jason?
Does this, is this unit subject to what we were talking about earlier? Some of the negotiating of the personal days, are these?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep,
so
they've been
after this,
asked.
after we've, assuming we pass this, then they'll still be approached and asked for.
They've been approached and will be voting or might have voted and just haven't notified me yet. But yep, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the Command Officer Association of Michigan Sergeant Bargaining Unit between Grand Traverse County and our sergeants in the Road Patrol and the Corrections Unit.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the contract. Does anyone have any further discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Lemko?
No.
Max Bauer?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item is finance, and we have Mr. Bott to give us a report on that, if he would, please, starting on page 16.
I will. The first item is our trial balance for our main operating fund, the general fund. It has a balance sheet that's presented on page 17, followed by revenue and expenditure information through April 30th, both 2011 and 2010. I did not I apologize for not having the notes that are normally provided with this, but I did want to provide that analysis briefly, if I could, starting with the revenues on page 18. The tax revenues, our taxes are not collected until after the tax bills go out, which is a July 1st levy. But you'll see there's a significant decrease, 78,000 compared with a year ago of April 30th. And that is primarily due to the Michigan Tax Tribunal adjustments that we have been charged with or assessed with through April 30th. And we will not actually recognize tax revenue then until the tax bills go out. So that revenue shows up in July. The state grant revenues are primarily timing differences. You'll see there's a $251,000 difference compared to a year ago. We receive liquor tax funds from the state. Those were received last year on April 30th. This year, they came in on May 2nd. The amount of that revenue was $214,000 last year. We have also not received any payments under the Secondary Road Patrol grant. That was $34,368 in last year's first 4 months. That accounts for that difference. It's timing. That will correct itself over the course of, well, the month of May. The local unit contributions is also a timing difference with when we billed for the supplemental law enforcement services. Last year, we billed the second quarter on April 30th. This year, I did not get that done until May 4th, so that is strictly a timing difference, and that amount was $346,000. I would not be doing my job, and I'm sure Commissioner Richardson would get after me a little bit if we didn't talk about the charges for services category. There are numerous revenue line items in this area. There's charges for services costs, charges for services fees, passport revenues are accounted for in this area, telephone surcharge revenue, which is in the corrections, and then our telephone surcharge revenues in our 911 department. I have revenue line items in this category that are up versus a year ago, and I have revenue line items that are down. But I want to start off with this comment. The 2011 budget is about $78,000 lower than our 2010 budget for this group of revenue line items because of what we experienced last year. Making up most of the difference comparing this year with last year, our costs, revenues in the district court are down 57, almost 58,000 through 4 months. The Register of Deeds, real estate transfer tax and recording fees, however, are up almost 26,000 for that same 4-month period of time. Charges for services rendered are down by 39,000, but that's an internal invoice back to our child care fund that was not done until the first part of May. And for some reason, our telephone surcharge revenues are down $8,048. Those are the main items that make up that decrease in revenue compared to a year ago as of April 30th. I'll continue to update this on a monthly basis, and I will make sure I have the notes in the future. On the expenditure side, the next page, our personnel expenditures in the general fund and primarily the public safety and general government functions are down $280,000 compared to a year ago. We have the same number of payrolls in that period. There were 9 payrolls, and it's primarily due to the fact that we've had several vacant FTEs. We have had positions that have been vacant, and it takes time to fill those positions, and it's primarily because of those positions that have been open. The health and welfare category is down $48,000. That's due to the current year period does not include the indirect costs that we bill back to our Veterans Affairs Department. That it has been billed, but it has not been paid. The other area includes a number of things. In the prior year, we had the appropriation to TC Talus. We had 2 of the quarterly fire education payments per the contract, and that's a $22,000 quarterly payment. And then the mental health appropriation last year was made in April. This year, that payment was not made until May of 2011, and that counts for that $211,000 difference. The transfers out are mainly due to the timing of when we invoice for the district and circuit court appropriations. Last year's transfer out includes activity through March. This year only includes January. So the February and March invoices, we did not actually invoice and pay until May. So it's strictly a timing of those court invoices, which are internal invoices. I know that's real quick, but if there are any questions, I'd try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Bott?
Nope.
Next item is budget adjustments.
Ask for your approval.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the budget adjustments as presented. Any questions? Sonny?
Dean, I assume I see on this special projects fund, and it talks about improvements for Twin Lakes. Does that mean that we've identified the funds for the dock for there, or?
We had actually received the final payment under, I won't get the name of the agency right, but last fall we received 25% of that grant had been held back. The funds came in fall of 2010, and that generated a fund balance because the project had not been completed. So that's what we're budgeting here, those funds that were closed into the fund balance that are going to be used to complete that park improvement.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor of approving the budget adjustments as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion is unanimous, yes. Next item is the child care fund. If you'd care to expound on that, Dean?
I'll try. Well, if you try to stay with me on page 24, I know I will lose you at some point in time, and I think Commissioner Richardson asked if he could present this.
Oh, no.
No, I sat down with Dean yesterday and said, okay, go through the math with me again. And it's like, now I remember why I don't remember the math.
This is not hocus pocus or magic by any means, but this grant is on the state's fiscal year.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is show at the top of the summary on page 24 how the budget from the state's fiscal year compares, side by side. And then the middle part of the page is showing the actual expenditures that we billed against that grant. And keep in mind, that grant is running, the numbers that are there, starting with the $136,000 for foster care, is from October 1st through the end of April. And that's per the 207s that we bill. And then we're showing the percentage of the state budget that's expended. And this is probably where we lose you. Then we jump down to show the county budget and the county expenditures and the county projection based on 4 months worth of data. And generally, it's not even 4 months worth of data because it takes time to get the bills in. But as I was explaining to Commissioner Richardson, there's actually a further complication this year too, in fact. The state revamped their billing system, and we are way behind on getting reimbursed. We have submitted our 207s on time, which is the mechanism that we get reimbursed by, But, and that's not the real issue, because the fund actually has cash, because the county appropriates on a quarterly basis to this fund. The bigger issue is the fact that they're they're months behind on billing us for the state wards. We just received, at the end of last week, the January state ward invoice. That was $14,000. Monday of this week, we got February, and that was $25,000. So I've only got 2 months' worth of invoices, and they're not reflected in the information here. And that was one of the first questions that Commissioner Richardson asked. Why don't we have any state ward chargeback here? Well, it's because the state hasn't been billing me. But I think they're in the process of catching up. The bottom line is, this is very good news at this point. I'm not expecting that this trend will continue, but it's probably the best shape that we've been in this fund in a good number of years, and I hope the trend continues.
Okay.
I'll keep you updated.
Commissioner Richardson, did you want to try it now?
Well, I'll just echo what Dean said, is like, we aren't spending money as fast as we projected, and despite that, that's not anything I would, take and say, oh, we're in great shape, let's go spend the money, because, and I'm sure Sonny has a better idea of this than I do, but that can change
Summer could.
quickly, dramatically overnight,
Right.
and we just keep crossing our fingers, and about November, I think, we can breathe maybe a little sigh of relief if it still looks good.
Well, I think a couple things that enter into it, though. One, this county board made a commitment to invest money in our juvenile court system and our juvenile drug rehab programs and those kind of things. And I don't believe we can possibly give enough of credit to Judge Stowe for the implementation of those programs, and it shows up in our child care costs.
Yeah, I agree.
We had a couple years ago that we did not send a single kid outside of Grand Traverse County for treatment and housing.
Right.
Was it 2007, 2006, 2007? We did not send a single child outside of our community for treatment. We were able to do it all here. And when you go to Shawano and those places and it's $768 a day, it gets real expensive real fast.
Okay, Mr. Bott, the septic fund trial balance, revenue and expenditure reports, you want to cover those, please?
Yes. Request was made to provide on a regular basis information regarding the septage fund. This is a separate fund in our accounting system, our general ledger. The trial balance, or the information that's on page 26, probably looks familiar or similar to the trial balance for the general fund, because it uses the same format. We utilize fund accounting here, but this fund has a different measurement focus than our general fund. The general fund is a traditional governmental fund type, where you have an annual budget, and you're looking at current resources against current expenditure of funds. This fund is what is called an enterprise fund. It has a full accrual approach. So when you look at this, the first thing you'll notice is that there's land recorded in the plant. The facility itself is recorded as it's the largest item on the balance sheet, the $7.4 million amount. And then down below under the liabilities, you have the outstanding issue or bond debt issues, the balances on those two bond issues. And then, you see a very large fund balance amount, which is somewhat misleading. This fund actually doesn't use that terminology for financial statement purposes. It's called the net assets, or the bottom line net assets for the fund, but that is a function of that land and plant value and compared to the outstanding debt. As you can see, the cash balance here is not real good. It's in the red. And there are also balances recording, in effect, the amount that the county advanced to the fund at the end of 2010 to cover the cash deficit. There are some other accounts related to the debt issues, and then again, I think the main reason to be looking at this is when you look at the revenue control number and the expenditure control, which is a summary of all of the revenues for the fund and the expenditures for the fund, and we'd already touched on the cash, but, the financial picture here is not real promising at this point. I can't make this any better than it is.
But it would be normally slower in the first quarter anyways.
It is slow. We're to that point where revenues will pick up. The one positive thing to note here, and I think Commissioner Richardson and I discussed this earlier this week, the expenditure control number does include the interest on the bonds. The interest is due, what did we figure, May 1st?
Yeah.
May 1st, we're making the interest payment on both bond issues, and then on November 1st, we're making the interest and the principal. So the interest was approximately $120,000 on those two debt issues, but that's driving that expenditure number as high as it is. Some information that I think is relevant to this discussion: the county provided a cash advance at the end of 2010 that was $429,000. I'm rounding it. It was slightly less than that. We have invoiced the townships for their 50% share. There is in process the loan, which would provide a loan of up to $750,000 for operations. I have not seen a completed loan document at this point in time. And then there is also the settlement agreement that would provide some cash at some point in time. And if I looked at that correctly, after you consider the retainage for the amount that's due on the design build, that would provide cash of $525,000 for the operation. I know that's a very quick overview, but I don't know what else to say.
Dean, in future time, could you give us more of a comparison of the last 3 years as far as expenses and revenue, so we can kind of see that as it's going along, so we can see if there's an increase or decrease?
I can absolutely do that.
Okay. Be kind of helpful to this, because, Ross made the comment that, this is a down time of the quarter.
Oh, what's it compared to?
But, can we compare it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Well, do we have any projections as far as the rest of the year, as far as revenues go, and then how it compares? And basically, to ask a long question shortened, how many years do we have before we're dipping into the general fund?
Well, the current plan.
We're dipping now.
The current plan is not to do that. I mean, unless the agreement and the understanding right now is to advance our loan funds with the understanding that interest is paid on those funds, because we have not made an outright appropriation or an expenditure from the general fund to this operation, because, you obviously have concerns with, your general fund and what you can do with that. Generally, Bill and I do try to put together a projection. We have not done that. It'd probably be something that we really need to do. Bill actually mentioned last week that we needed to sit down with Dennis and try to quantify that, so that we know.
There is a Board of Public Works budget for the septic treatment plant.
Well, there's a budget here too, in the information that's provided, but we really need to take a look at that to see, based on, the activity to date, to make sure that those revenue numbers are valid.
Yeah, those are reviewed monthly at the Board of Public Works meeting.
Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the numbers so far, is it your understanding that revenues are not covering even day-to-day expenditures, never mind the bond payment at the end of the year?
That would be correct.
And that, of course, is the problem, because the bond payment at the end of the year is like, what, $450,000?
I don't like to give numbers, but,
I know.
I mean, you're going to
Oh,
have
come
interest,
on.
interest would be probably $100,000, and I think the principal payment on the bond would not, that's probably the total payment.
Yeah.
That brings us back to the townships, when they start talking about borrowing from their funds to pay that bond payment.
Well, that's the agreement, is we will loan
Yeah.
up to 50%, and they have to loan out of their monies for the other 50%.
We have a revenue problem is what we have, and we always have.
Yes,
Had a
we
revenue
do.
problem at the septic plant.
Flow problem. Flow increase.
Revenue.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along. Next item is administration. Number one is the administrator's 2011 primary goals and objectives. Did anyone have any questions on it?
I could just speak to that briefly. Dennis
All
met
right.
with me and asked that, in fact, just suggested that we just put this back on as information only to remind commissioners about his work plan for the year, and also that he'd like to have some feedback if anybody would like to give that to him. And I said, I feel kind of uncomfortable about doing that at a meeting that you're not going to be here. So why don't I, as a member of the council, request that this item be placed as new business at the end of the month board meeting, and commissioners can make remarks about his work plan there. And of course, they're always welcome to come in and visit with Dennis at any time and talk about his work plan.
Anybody have any objections to that? Chris?
I don't have an objection. The only thing I wanted to tell Commissioner Inman is, under Board of Public Works, work with the Board of Public Works to reevaluate the organizational structure. If you would take this back to the county administrator, and Commissioner Thomas, if you would take it to the Board of Public Works, I think that our county administrator, who is asked to supervise the head of the Board of Public Works, I don't think the lines of his authority are clear, and I don't think that's fair to him. And I think those lines have to be clear. I think either the head of the department of the Board of Public Works either needs to work for the chair and the board of the Public Works, or our county administrator needs to have the authority, which he does not have, based upon my conversations with him.
Right.
And I think that needs to be clarified. So that's just something that I would like you to
I agree with you.
take back.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, and Commissioner Inman, you'll see that it's put on.
Yeah, I'll put it on new business for
Okay.
the board meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Max Bauer on her comments.
Okay. Next item is disclosure letters from Lark Lawn and Garden, page 34 and 35. Do you want to cover those, Dean?
Well, this is to comply with our purchasing policy. This is the required disclosure indicating the conflict of interest. It's being received, and then action will not be taken on this until, I believe, the board meeting later in the month.
Thank you. Next item is unfinished business. We've got number 7, B1, appropriations that Commissioner Max Bauer pulled off.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, I do not wish to consent to the appropriation to the Grand Traverse Metro Emergency Services Authority. I've never been in support of this appropriation. The Grand Traverse County right now is faced with economic challenges to preserve the employees that we do have, and that's my primary focus, is to preserve the programs and employees that we do have presently. We do not have a fire department. Grand Traverse Metro, Rural, and the City of Traverse City all have fire departments, and if they feel as a fire department, that this is a valuable service. They need to fund it, not us. So I will not be voting in favor of this.
Ross?
I would move that we approve the appropriation request for $134,005.50 to Northern Michigan Substance Abuse and appropriation of $22,000 to Grand Traverse Metro Emergency Services Authority.
Support?
Been moved and supported to approve the appropriation request as presented. Sonny?
I guess I would note that this appropriation to Grand Traverse Metro Fire, or Metro Emergency Services Authority, as it's now called, was a commitment Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners made for 3 years to establish and get going a public education piece that was offered in the schools and to seniors and people in adult foster care homes and a lot of other safety programs for the slip and fall program and the Learn Not to Burn programs. Important education that we made a 3-year commitment. 2011 is our final year of that program, and they are well aware that they will not receive funding in 2012 for this, but this is the completion of our commitment.
Ross?
And I certainly understand why Commissioner Max Bauer, pulled this off the consent calendar. I also voted against this last fall during the budget process, but having done that, the board did approve it. Other departments were, I think, depended on our decisions, our budget decisions, to form their own budgets, and so I think we need to honor this commitment through the year, just as we need to honor all of our commitments as much as we can that we made through the budget last year.
Okay. Jason?
Having planned to support the Northern Michigan Substance Abuse appropriation, now I must vote against it because we've lumped the two appropriations together. I think these things should stand on their own. I don't appreciate when the appropriations are made in a way that you take it all or you get none. I just don't like that.
So you're asking that the motion be amended?
I would appreciate to have
one
it.
at a time?
Yes, I would prefer to have them one at a time.
See if the motion as made was passed. If the motion passes, it doesn't matter, then we
Right.
make both payments.
Motion's on the floor.
Yeah.
Unless Ross wants to change his motion.
No, I think Sonny's got it right, I think we should just go ahead and vote on it.
I agree that things ought to stand on their own. That I certainly respect Commissioner Gilman's wishes on that, and I think it'd be fair to split the items so that he can accurately go on record as what he does support and what he doesn't.
Who made the motion?
Yeah,
Ross?
yeah, I guess it's my, go ahead.
I don't wish to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
All right. Everybody understand the motion? Roll call. vote.
Here we go.
Limco?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Gilman?
No.
Henschel?
Yes.
Hinman?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
And let's see,
Get it.
if I could make one comment.
sure.
In relationship to what Commissioner Gilman's talking about, I mean, this obviously started out as a consent calendar item, but perhaps we could communicate with administration that with items like this, they make each appropriation a separate item, still put it on the consent calendar, but, each item is separate so we can,
A and B?
if we wish to pick
Yes.
and choose, we can pick
All
and
right,
choose.
good, all right, I'll relay that message, that's a good thought.
You'll relay that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
We couldn't have the whole consent calendar withdrawn.
I know. It
What can I tell you? It's my fault.
disappointment.
Goal of my life.
It's like not finding that four-leaf clover when you thought you did.
Okay, an unfinished business, we also had A, which was the panic alarm system tabled in April. The information will be brought back next month, so it's still on the back burner. 10, new business. Do we have any new business? Let's see, number 11, students. Front and center.
Public
Public
comment.
comment.
Questions
If you
about
do,
anything?
seriously, if you do wish to come up and make any comment to the Board of Commissioners, all you have to do is come up, sit in the chair, give us your name and your address, and say whatever you want
I
to
think you
say.
get extra credit, too.
3 minutes of fame.
Actually, you should
doubt
come
it.
and thank us for such a short meeting, because I think our last meeting went
4 hours.
three or 4
Yeah,
hours, and we're
4.
only at 45 minutes right now, and we're almost done.
You'd have your
No
sleeping
takers
bag
on
with
the
you.
invitation?
We won't tell your teachers, we
They're
promise.
embarrassed.
All right, moving right along. Next item is Commissioner Committee reports. Herb?
Yeah, just, I sit on a transportation committee, and they are in the process of putting together a bus transportation connector schedule. And it keeps getting changed, and it's a whole lot easier to read, so that you can figure out how to come from Benzie County into Traverse City, from Kalkaska into Traverse City, from Leona County into Traverse City, and vice versa. So I think when they get this published and come out, this was just a preview of it. They'll also have some sponsors on this, so it's going to be a much easier to read transportation schedule for people to be able to follow the transportation from in and out of Traverse City.
Are they going to post times at the stops?
That hasn't been decided. I don't know, who's on the beta board?
I am. They will, for example, in the village of Buckley,
Yeah.
they have Cadillacs, or Wexford County's beta, if you will, has a transfer station there. And they will post times like, their bus comes in, I believe, at 7:30, and our bus picks them up and leaves there like 7:45 in the morning, so, but they will have the schedules on there.
And when the Buckley Road project comes into play, they will also be taking care of that entranceway and all, working with the Beta Transfer Site to help to upgrade those roads in that area. That's part of the Grand Vision money that went to Buckley. That's kind of the entranceway to Traverse City, so it'll be a good thing.
Anyone else? Jason?
And the Planning Commission delayed the energy plan for another month so that the commissioners there could fully understand it a little bit more. Another thing that we approved or okayed or was the Long Lake Long Lake medical marijuana land use moratorium. It's a 6-month moratorium. It is not a prohibition. It is not a direct limitation. It's simply they'll not take any action or allow any land use for medical marijuana purposes for the time being. It's a way that they're avoiding being sued and then it allows them to come up with a better plan or better ordinance in the future.
Right, gives them 6 months to put it
Right.
together.
Garfield's Planning Commission is just about ready to approve theirs and send it on to the Township Board. So a lot of good changes in it, so.
Ross?
TC Tallis met yesterday, and we decided to schedule a board retreat to work on a strategic work plan. Now that the Grand Vision study is done, we need to do a better job of defining what exactly we do and what we're all about. So that'll be probably scheduled sometime early this summer.
Monday, I attended the Northern Association of Michigan Counties.
Counties, yeah.
And for the new commissioners maybe that aren't familiar with that organization, it consists of roughly a line drawn across Midland, all the counties north to the bridge. And they meet once a month in Grayling, generally at the Grayling Township Hall at 9:45 a.m. But and MAC generally does a presentation, and they did this Monday, and they would appreciate, so would I, if each and every one of you would get on the phone with Schmidt and Walker and give them 2 very clear messages. The first one's regarding PILT. That's the money
Payment in lieu
that...
of taxes.
Huh?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Right. And the message you want to get across to them is pay your taxes. They're gonna cut Pilt out. And
That'll
so
relieve-
one of the commissioners there asked, well, now, if a citizen doesn't pay their taxes, they lose their property. Can we confiscate the state property for non-payment?
Good question.
Good question. Number two is revenue sharing. Stick by your agreement. Grand Traverse, I believe, is supposed to get ours.
Well, 14.
Yeah, in 2014.
About $1.2 million.
The last one being in
Annually.
2023,
Yeah,
but they're talking about cutting revenue sharing out completely.
yeah.
And so we need to do it this week, like tomorrow is an ideal day. Get on the phone, call them up and talk to their staff, or if you can catch them, talk to them and tell them. Number one, for Pilt, pay your taxes. Number two, continue the agreement that you made several years ago on the revenue sharing. We've already taken our cuts, and we want you guys to stick by your agreement.
Are they gonna cut out the half that the townships get that's constitutional?
Then
I don't think they can.
See,
They were talking just about the
the
county.
county doesn't
Just
have
that.
constitutional, the
No,
townships and the
right.
villages do.
Yeah.
Right. Larry?
And for the newer commissioners, for information, how this whole thing started was that there was an agreement way back that the counties would pay for courts, and we would house them, we'd have facilities for them, all right? And we would pay for those costs. And in lieu of that, we would share revenue coming in from the state. I think it was in the, is it sales tax or whatever, it's a portion of it was
Sales
distributed to help pay for not only courts, but all the unfunded mandates that they had required counties to do, but were unwilling to pay, and we cut that deal back way back. And back then, it was about an even trade, okay? And what's happened is the cost of courts have escalated, the revenue sharing has remained flat and lowered, and you know, to the point where now they're saying, you don't get revenue sharing anymore. We ought to be saying, guess what? You got to pay for courts. Because that was the agreement. And now they're reneging on this whole deal. We got to remind, those folks in Lansing, if you take away revenue sharing, you ought to be paying for courts.
Exactly, and that's the same comment many commissioners made from the different counties at the meeting Monday.
Didn't I see where somebody was making a House bill or something to do just that, to take
I don't know.
the courts
Don't
back? I remember seeing
Don't call.
something in one of the updates,
Yep.
so, yeah.
Rob?
I, this week attended the Michigan Association of Community Mental Health Organizations conference in Kalamazoo, and just a conference on issues facing community mental health organizations, and everything from budgets to how to keep your staff in a positive culture and things like that. It's very informative. I'm going on about 60 hours straight of county business. I haven't been to work yet this week at my real job. But this is just part-time.
We're all learning that's not true.
It's only Wednesday.
Yeah. Find out they don't miss you. Then what's gonna happen?
They just might, yeah.
It's running better without you, Rob.
Price of gas came down.
And one other thing that bothers me greatly is the apportionment committee's decision to reduce this board from 9 members to 7 members. And I don't think they seriously understood the number of meetings that we each attend every month. And if they would have had a good reason, in my opinion, to do that, I could understand it. Like huge monetary savings. The savings, in my opinion, when you add and subtract it all out, is less than $20,000 out of a $38 million budget. So it's totally insignificant. Number two, the 3 members, that's a 5-member board that made that decision. 3 members are the treasurer, the clerk, and the prosecutor, the chairman of the Republican committee, and the chairman of the Democratic committee. And by Sunday's paper, reading in the paper, I saw the handwriting on the wall, and in fact, I told the commissioners at Monday's meeting in Grayling, I said, 10 o'clock they had a meeting, and their decision will be to make it 7 commissioners. All 3 of them are not returning to office, so they're lame duck office holders. They're not going to be here the next 10 years when this board's operating and serving the constituency of Grand Traverse County. And I don't think they really thought the whole process out, where the impact it's going to have. Our county gained significant population this last census. A lot of them that were reducing their commissions lost population. So what they've done in effect is, just for example, if, and I'm sure you've all thought about it and knew it, but if we each represented 10,000 constituencies before, now we're going to do maybe 13. It's less time for every voter out there. I think the decision was terrible for the taxpayers of Grand Traverse County.
Here's the map.
Yes.
I want to say thanks to Chris for sending this map out to us to kind of show us what the districts really are all about. So I think that's really important to see. And, you know, the public probably hasn't seen this map per se. They've only heard about where the lines are going. So just wanted to show this particular map and let people know there is a map out there. So if they want to call me or email me, I can be happy to email it to them, or so will Chris.
Larry?
Well, I'd like to share, and I guess your level of frustration that, you know, they're out of 12 plans, and I know there's nothing we can do about it or say about it, but there were 12 plans developed. 3 of them had 9. I went down to the clerk's and the treasurer's office, and I believe 2 out of the 9 plans, there were 3 plans that had 9 commissioners. 2 of them, they basically were the same districts. There was a little tweaking here and there, but, you know, nobody would have been running against each other. We would have had, you know, the same sort of districts. And, you know, I tried to put some rationale behind it that, you know, we grew 10,000 people and we're not adding commissioners. Usually when you have more growth, you have more representation. You don't decrease the representation with higher growth. I mean, that's just not the public way, in my opinion. And so I was disappointed they didn't give any consideration of the 9 plan. You know, the rationale about taking it to 7, you know, and saving money, I agree with you. It's minute. In fact, you know, it's going to be more of a wear and tear on the 7 commissioners that return, because they're going to have more assignments. They're going to have more responsibility, a higher level of constituents to ask, you know, to respond to questions and emails and everything else, which is fine. But you know, you think you're working hard now, you think we're full-time now, just add more job responsibility in geographic area. Now, the biggest thing is the cost of elections. You know, when I've had competition, I've spent $4,500. Now you're looking at $7,000, and that's just for one touch. One print for absentee voters and one print going to regular voters on the day of the election. That's it. So, you know, we get paid $7,000 salary a year, and you're going to make the cost of elections every 2 years the same cost as our salary on an annualized basis. I said, this isn't making any sense. But they went, you know, they went with it, and there's nothing really we can do with it. All we got to do is
Live with it.
live with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I asked Mr. Rokas, the treasurer, when I was in his office, what the thinking was, or what the thought process was for 7 versus 9. And his answer to me was, it's the trend statewide.
It's not, though.
And like I said, if you look at the thing in its totality, I just think it was a very poor decision on their part.
Well,
Sonny?
Well, I guess, you know, my comment, of course, as you know, I came from a township background, and I watched townships all over the state when the legislation changed to allow general law townships to go from 5 members to 7. I've seen voters overwhelmingly vote to have more representation on their township boards. And I spent about 45 minutes on the phone this morning with a gentleman that apparently read the paper, which I never do, but that we were going to 7. He wanted to know exactly how many dollars we were saving the county and whether this was going to be worth it, because he wasn't sure he was getting the same representation. And I really, truly had no argument for him.
There's a great number of people in this county who would like to see township government go away. And, yeah, you could save a lot of money, because it costs a lot of money to run each township. But when you look at what's going to happen here, plus the fact that maybe they want to take the townships away, the people are going to end up with no representation at all. I mean, the townships are their local voice. And if they want to, and there's good reason to do it. It costs a lot of money to run a township, but on the other hand, how is the individual going to be if he doesn't have a township and he got to make an appointment for 6 months to talk to a county commissioner?
Well, my
Doesn't make any
response,
sense.
my response to those folks that sat on the board and said the trend was going lower, we were one of the few counties that had an increase in population throughout the state.
That's right.
Most counties had lost population. You know, if Michigan lost 1 million people, that got spread around. We were one of the fortunate counties that had a gain in population. That's why the trend was downward for population, and those apportionment boards went down in representation.
But Larry, on the same token, when you go west of the Mississippi, they're all represented by 3 county commissioners, and they do not have townships.
And they get paid
And they get paid full-time pay.
$85,000,
Yep.
and they get a full-time staff,
There's
et
only
cetera,
10
et cetera, et
states that do have
cetera.
townships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only 10 states that have townships themselves.
So now,
As frustrating as this is for all of us, and how
We'll
I'm
get through
sure
it.
we all
Nothing you
have
can
an
do about
opinion, the fact is, we don't have any control over it.
That's right. Yep.
So, you know,
Here's
there's
what's
no
going on
sense
with
in sitting here
But
and
I thought that
getting
it
us all
was
steamed up about
proper,
it.
I thought it was proper for us to discuss this, to show our displeasure as far as our constituency. Okay, moving on, notices and announcement, ad hoc committee interviews, Friday, May 20th, 9 a.m. Coffee with Schmidt and Walker, Friday, June 10th, 9 a.m. Everybody knows who Schmidt and Walker is, right? Good. And
I'm sorry.
A lot of time involved.
next one is the semi-annual joint Board of Commissioner and municipalities meeting, be held Thursday, June 30th, 6 p.m. at the Civic Center.
I don't
Any
think
other
I'm,
notices
I don't
or
think I'm
yeah?
going to be here for that one.
Yeah,
so.
there's one more notice. I noticed there's a hockey game on.
Yes. Move to adjourn.
Support.
So moved.
You have to actually show that they did not.
Students, you're going to have him.